I'm observing an incredible event unfold right before my eyes. This isn't about a market or a currency, it's about an alliance. The most formidable military coalition in contemporary history, which took 80 years to establish, is disintegrating live on air amidst a conflict while oil prices soar to $120 a barrel. American troops are losing their lives in the Gulf, and those accountable are appearing on television, issuing threats to their own allies. In the next few minutes, I will guide you through not just the actions of a single senator, but a geopolitical fracture that could redefine every alliance the United States has, alter energy markets globally, and impact the prices you pay for goods over the next decade. Stay with me, this is significant. And if you haven't yet subscribed to Sarah Mitchell's YouTube channel, do so immediately. Hit the notification bell. The markets are fluctuating hourly, and you'll want to be informed when the next major development occurs. Let's rewind to 12 days ago, February 28, 2026. The United States and Israel initiated joint military strikes against Iran in an operation dubbed Epic Fury. There was no prior authorization from the United Nations, no formal declaration of war, and no broad coalition of allies, just American bombers and Israeli jets targeting Iranian military facilities. Following this, a series of events began to unravel. Here's what the mainstream narrative overlooked. While the world was fixated on the explosions over Tehran, a diplomatic earthquake was taking place behind the scenes. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and Bahrain, America's closest partners in the Gulf, immediately signaled that they would not participate in this conflict. Reports from the Middle East revealed that Riyadh had warned the Trump administration weeks prior that it would not permit the use of Saudi airspace for offensive operations, yet these warnings were disregarded. This was not an unexpected assault that caught allies off guard. It was a conscious decision made in Washington and Jerusalem to engage in warfare without consulting those who would bear the brunt of the consequences, the neighboring countries to Iran. Then the missiles began to strike, not just Iran, but also these Gulf nations. The first announcement: the Gulf is under attack. Iran has launched thousands of drones and missiles across the region since the war commenced on February 28th, targeting not only American bases in Qatar, but also Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, and the UAE. According to Oil Price, the UAE has endured over 250 ballistic missile strikes and more than 1,400 drone attacks since the conflict began. The toll includes 4 foreign nationals killed and 117 injured. Bahrain's primary oil facility, the Babco complex, was attacked and set ablaze, prompting the national oil company to declare force majeure on its shipments, indicating a state of emergency. In Saudi Arabia, the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh was struck by Iranian drones, leading to a mandatory evacuation of non-essential personnel. 7 American soldiers have been confirmed dead, with reports from CNN indicating that an Iranian drone struck a makeshift facility housing U.S. troops in Kuwait, resulting in the deaths of 6 service members in a single attack. Repeating that, 6 Americans killed in one drone strike in Kuwait. What intelligence allowed them to locate this facility? We will explore that shortly. Meanwhile, as reported by PBS NewsHour, oil production in Iraq's 3 main southern fields has plummeted by 70%, dropping from 4.3 million barrels per day to just 1.3 million. Kuwait has also reduced its production, and the UAE is managing offshore output with storage nearing capacity. Ships are no longer navigating the Strait of Hormuz, and oil prices have surged. CNBC reported that Brent crude, the international benchmark, reached $119.50 per barrel on Monday morning, an increase of 50% from the price just before the war began. The Wall Street Journal described this as the most severe energy crisis since the 1970s. Axios noted that the Iran war has disrupted 20% of the global oil supply, more than double the previous record set during the Suez Crisis of 1956. This is the first announcement. The Gulf is ablaze, the oil market is in turmoil, and the nations that America is threatening to abandon are those enduring Iranian retaliation for a war they did not provoke. The second announcement involves the senator now issuing threats to America's allies. Over the past 72 hours, Senator Lindsey Graham has emerged as the most vocal and aggressive figure in American foreign policy. He appeared on Fox News, posted on social media, and issued ultimatums to sovereign nations. His statements were remarkable. To Saudi Arabia, Graham publicly declared, "It is my understanding that the kingdom refuses to use their capable military as part of an effort to end the barbaric and terrorist Iranian regime, which has terrorized the region and killed 7 Americans. Why should America enter a defense agreement with a country like Saudi Arabia that is unwilling to join a fight of mutual interest? Consequences will follow. Consequences for Saudi Arabia." This was said in the midst of a war where Saudi infrastructure is being bombarded. He went further on Fox News, suggesting that American air bases should be removed from Spain and urging France and the United Kingdom to wake up. He insisted that Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia must make a decision immediately. Then came the line that clarified everything. Graham stated, "Venezuela and Iran hold 31% of the world's oil reserves. When this regime falls, we will witness a new Middle East and will profit immensely." There it is, plainly articulated on camera. This is not about Iran's nuclear ambitions or regional security. It's about controlling 31% of global oil reserves. Graham himself highlighted this. According to the Wall Street Journal, Graham first proposed striking Iran to President Trump during a golf outing shortly after the 2024 election. He visited Saudi Arabia in late February, just days before the strikes, in what U.S. officials described as an attempt to secure Saudi consent for the operation. This occurred even while negotiations with Tehran were still ongoing, and the Saudis ultimately declined. The strikes proceeded regardless, and now Graham is threatening the very country that rejected his request. This is the second announcement. The third announcement is that Russia is now involved in this conflict, and the Trump administration appears uncertain about how to respond. This is the aspect that many are failing to connect. Reports from the Washington Post, later corroborated by CNN and NBC News, indicate that Russia has been supplying Iran with intelligence regarding the locations and movements of American troops, warships, and aircraft in the Middle East. This intelligence includes satellite imagery that assists in locating military bases and strike groups. 6 Americans are dead, and Iranian drones have struck U.S. positions with alarming precision, all while Russia provides Iran with targeting information. When Fox News reporter Peter Doocy raised this issue at a White House press briefing, the president dismissed the question as stupid. "What a ridiculous question to ask at this time," Trump remarked during a discussion about college sports. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt claimed that the intelligence sharing was not affecting military operations in Iran. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth asserted that Russia and China are not significant factors and that the U.S. is tracking everything. Meanwhile, as reported by CNN, Trump spoke with Putin for about an hour on Monday. Afterward, Trump told reporters that Putin wants to be helpful and was impressed with the U.S. strikes, expressing a desire for a constructive relationship. Simultaneously, according to the Kremlin's account, Putin reaffirmed unwavering support for Iran in a letter to the new supreme leader, Mojave Kam. Unwavering support for a regime that is killing Americans, from the very leader whom Trump calls constructive. During the same call, they discussed Ukraine, with Putin informing Trump of significant advances. Trump even suggested a ceasefire. To clarify, Russia is supplying Iran with targeting data to kill Americans, while simultaneously receiving favorable treatment from the Trump administration regarding oil sanctions and Ukraine discussions. The President of the United States views this as a positive and constructive relationship. This is the third announcement. If you're watching this and thinking critically, it's crucial to subscribe to Sarah Mitchell's YouTube channel right now. What I'm about to discuss next is the total collapse of what was once the American world order, and it's happening more rapidly than anyone in Washington is willing to acknowledge. Now, let's examine what is truly occurring within the nations that America is threatening. The UAE ambassador to the United Nations, Jamal al-Musharraf, made the official stance clear in Geneva, stating, "We were among those who consistently called for negotiation, diplomacy, and de-escalation." That's the diplomat's perspective. Now, let's hear from the business community. Caliph Ahmed Al-Haber, a prominent figure in Emirati business and political commentary, issued a statement that gained traction throughout the Arab world after Graham's ultimatums. He wrote, "I heard Senator Lindsey Graham's comments urging Gulf Cooperation Council countries to join this war, asserting that we are also under attack and must engage in the fight. I say to him plainly, we understand why we are under attack. We also recognize who dragged the entire region into this dangerous escalation without consulting those he labels his allies. The hasty American decisions have embroiled the region in a conflict that its peoples did not choose, and local allies were not consulted before it was initiated. We acknowledge the Iranian threat, but this is a treacherous game where multiple powers clash at the expense of our region, devoid of honor and transparency. In this scenario, Iran, Israel, and the United States act according to their interests, not those of the people in the Middle Eastern Arab countries." He then addressed Graham directly, saying, "If President Trump and Senator Graham are willing to jeopardize their country and the lives of Americans for Israel's interests, that is their choice. As for us, we will not do the same." Senator Graham claims to be an ally to the Arabs, advocating for U.S. protection. I tell him, "We do not require your protection. All we ask is for you to refrain from interfering in our affairs." His final remark was striking. Anyone listening to your statements might think you are a member of the Israeli Knesset, as you defend Israel's interests more than those of the American people. This statement from one of the UAE's most influential figures did not receive the attention it warranted, as it articulates what the rest of the world is already quietly acknowledging. The United States instigated this war. The Gulf is suffering the consequences, and now the messenger is threatening the victims for not willingly enduring further suffering. Now, let's discuss the implications for you. If you reside in the United States, you've likely noticed an increase in gas prices. According to AAA, the average price of gasoline in the U.S. surged from under $3 per gallon to $3.48 within a week, a 16% increase in just 7 days. And it doesn't stop there. According to the Vice President of Oil Markets at Riot Energy, if the current situation continues for 2 months, Brent crude prices could surpass $110 a barrel. If it persists for 4 months, we might see prices reach $135. Analysts at Ever or ISI have calculated that if oil prices hover around $100 a barrel, the resulting spike in gasoline prices will effectively negate the tax refund benefits from the 2025 tax cuts for most Americans. Only the top 30% of income earners would still benefit. The financial toll of the war is approximately $1 billion per day. Lindsey Graham appeared on Fox News and referred to this expenditure as the best money ever spent. $1 billion a day, oil prices up by 50%, rising gas prices, 7 American soldiers dead, and domestically, manufacturing employment remains lower than it was when tariff policies were introduced in 2018. The promised jobs have not materialized. Meanwhile, Reuters reports that the Trump administration is contemplating lifting oil sanctions on Russia to alleviate energy prices. Consider the implications of that. Russia is providing Iran with intelligence to target and kill Americans, and the proposed response is to allow Russia to sell more oil and increase its revenue. If you hold investments, a 401k, or have any exposure to energy, airline, or shipping stocks, expect unprecedented volatility in the next 90 days. Goldman Sachs predicts that disruptions to Qatari liquefied natural gas exports could push European gas benchmark prices to $22 per million BTU in the second quarter. Europe is already grappling with its own energy crisis, compounded by the one created by the US. In India, restaurants are warning of potential shutdowns as the government prioritizes household gas supplies. Thailand has suspended overseas travel for civil servants. The Philippines has introduced a temporary 4-day work week, and Vietnam is encouraging remote work. This is one war in a narrow waterway that accounts for 20% of the world's daily oil supply, and it's choking the global economy from Manila to Madrid. According to former IMF chief economist Maurice Obstfeld, the long-standing nightmare scenario that prevented the US from considering an attack on Iran was the fear that Iran would close the Strait of Hormuz. Now, we are living that nightmare. If you believe that the complete picture of this war is not being clearly communicated, give this video a thumbs up. Daily Brief exists to connect the dots that the 24-hour news cycle overlooks. Leave a comment below. Do you think America's Gulf allies are making the right decision by staying out of this conflict? I want to hear your perspective. Now, let's shift our focus to Europe, as that narrative is equally significant and often overlooked. Spain has barred U.S. military aircraft from using its jointly operated bases in Andalusia. Following this announcement, the President of the United States threatened to sever all trade with Spain, a member of the European Union. France has declined to participate offensively, and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer initially refused to allow the use of British bases for U.S. strikes, only later permitting their use for defensive operations. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney has deemed the war unlawful. These are not adversaries. These are formal allies, NATO members, countries that have supported American military operations for 80 years. Yet, there's one notable exception: France. According to reporting by Oil Price, France is deploying roughly a dozen warships to the Mediterranean, Red Sea, and potentially the Strait of Hormuz. This deployment includes the Charles de Gaulle Aircraft Carrier Strike Group. President Macron, speaking from Cyprus after drones were intercepted near the island, framed the mission as defensive, aimed at protecting European allies and eventually guiding tankers back through the strait once the fiercest fighting subsides. This is in opposition to American objectives. It reflects Europe's realization that it cannot afford to watch the Strait of Hormuz choke its energy supply while waiting for Washington to resolve a problem it created. In the meantime, NATO air defenses intercepted a ballistic missile that crossed into Turkish airspace this week, marking the second such interception since the war began. The conflict has now breached the borders of the Western Military Alliance itself, prompting the State Department to order non-essential staff to depart from the U.S. consulate in Adana, southern Turkey. This marks the 10th American diplomatic post to receive evacuation orders since the war started. With one NATO ally shooting down missiles and a European aircraft carrier deploying to the Gulf, the public narrative from the Trump administration insists that everything is proceeding according to plan, and anyone posing difficult questions is in the wrong. Let me illustrate what's truly occurring at the strategic level. Amid this conflict, Iran appointed Mojtaba Kamyun, the hardline son of the slain supreme leader, as the new supreme leader of the Islamic Republic. This is a significant development. The new leader is viewed as more ideologically rigid, more anti-Western, and more committed to the nuclear program than his predecessor. Trump has publicly declared this selection unacceptable, yet Iran went ahead with it. Iran is not capitulating, it is doubling down, and it is not fighting alone. Russia is supplying satellite intelligence. CNN reports that Putin has personally spoken with the leaders of Bahrain, the UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia since the war commenced. He is leveraging every relationship America is threatening to dismantle, positioning himself as the alternative partner in the very region the U.S. is alienating. At the beginning of this year, Putin appeared weak. The ousting of Venezuelan President Maduro in January was a strategic embarrassment for Moscow, and then Iran's supreme leader was killed in American strikes, decapitating Russia's most important Middle Eastern ally. However, look at Putin's current position. Oil prices above $100 a barrel mean Russia is earning more on every barrel sold. Attention has shifted away from Ukraine, where Russian operations continue with minimal international coverage. Trump needs Putin's assistance, or believes he does, which provides leverage over Ukraine. Now, Putin is the go-to figure for Arab leaders seeking someone to communicate with Washington. Russia may have lost an ally in Iran's former regime, but it could gain something much larger: the role of indispensable broker between a disintegrating American alliance network and a volatile Middle East. This is not accidental, it's a strategy. Iran has also sent a signal this week. According to Oil Price, The IRGC spokesperson Ibrahim Zulfikari warned on state television that if strikes on Iranian energy infrastructure persist, Tehran would take actions that could push global oil prices above $200 per barrel. At that price, a global recession would be immediate and severe. Airline travel would plummet, supply chains would fracture, and food prices, which depend on fertilizer made from natural gas, plastics derived from petroleum, and transport powered by diesel, would soar across the developing world. Iran has also communicated through diplomatic backchannels that any Arab or European country expelling Israeli and American ambassadors from its territory would immediately regain full authority to pass shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. That's an enticing offer to every country Graham is threatening. Align with us, and your ships can move freely again. Iran is extending a diplomatic olive branch, while America is issuing threats. Which approach do you think economically vulnerable countries in the region are paying closer attention to? I want to be candid about where this could lead because I see two potential paths, neither of which is clean. The first path is that de-escalation emerges from an unexpected source. Trump could declare victory, claiming that the degradation of Iran's military capabilities is sufficient. He might pull back from calls for regime change and negotiate a solution, perhaps a frozen conflict, a partial agreement regarding nuclear infrastructure, or a ceasefire brokered through back channels, possibly involving Moscow. Oil prices would drop, the strait would reopen, and allies would be quietly reassured, halting the economic bleeding before a recession sets in. For this scenario to materialize, someone must convince Trump that a victory is attainable now. Graham needs to temper his rhetoric, and the new Iranian supreme leader must agree to something he can present as a win at home. Achieving all three of these conditions is challenging but not impossible. The second path, however, and where I believe we currently stand, is a downward spiral. Iran is unlikely to yield. Mojtaba Kham, the new supreme leader, cannot be seen as capitulating to the nation that killed his father. The IRGC may escalate their actions, leading to more American casualties. The pressure on Gulf allies will intensify, and Saudi Arabia, caught between Iranian missiles and American ultimatums, might quietly initiate a back channel with Beijing. China could step in as an alternative guarantor, loosening the petrodollar relationship that has underpinned American financial dominance since 1974, especially at a time when oil prices are high and American alliances are fraying. Meanwhile, Russia continues to provide targeting data, resulting in more American fatalities. Domestic public support may erode. Joe Rogan, typically not a critic of Republican foreign policy, recently remarked that Trump supporters feel betrayed by what he termed the insane Iran war. When you lose that segment of your audience, it signals a significant shift. Economic pressures are mounting. The benefits from tax cuts are being negated at the gas pump. Grocery prices are rising. Housing remains unaffordable, and the president, who campaigned on delivering economic relief, is presiding over an energy crisis that his own senator admitted was partly designed to profit from Iranian oil reserves. Just 3 days ago, I believed we were on the first path. Then the news about Russian intelligence broke, followed by the appointment of the new supreme leader. Now, I'm uncertain. As of March 11th, 2026, the United States and Israel are engaged in a war in Iran with 50,000 American troops, more than 200 fighter jets, and 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, according to CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper. 7 American soldiers are dead, and the conflict has disrupted 20% of global oil supply, more than any conflict since the Suez Crisis. Oil prices peaked at nearly $120 a barrel and remain above $90. Gas prices have surged 16% within a week. Not a single major Arab country is participating in offensive operations, nor is any European NATO ally supporting them. Russia is supplying Iran with targeting data to kill Americans while publicly expressing solidarity with Tehran. The U.S. diplomatic response has been to threaten allies who are being bombed for not volunteering to endure even more bombardment. Iran has appointed its most hardline leader in decades, and Putin has spoken with both Trump and Iran's new supreme leader within the same week. France has deployed a carrier strike group, and NATO has intercepted a missile over Turkey. This is no longer just a regional conflict. This represents a realignment. Let me conclude with 3 questions for you to ponder, as the analysis does not end here. First, is the decision to wage this war without Allied consent, legal framework, or coalition a strategic masterstroke that will reshape the Middle East in America's favor? Or is it the moment the world decides it no longer needs to choose the American side? Second, when a U.S. senator goes on national television and states that his country will profit immensely when an adversary's government collapses, citing their oil reserves as the primary motivation, how does that differ from the resource wars America has condemned for decades? Third, if Russia is providing intelligence to kill American troops and the response is to consider lifting sanctions on Russian oil, what does that convey to every other nation regarding the cost of threatening American lives? Please share your thoughts below. I read every single comment. If this video has helped you gain a new perspective, share it widely. This story is evolving rapidly, and many are still receiving only a brief summary. Subscribe to Sarah Mitchell YouTube channel and hit the notification bell. We will return as soon as the next significant development occurs.